The scent of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the little cafe as Emma wiped down the counter, her hands steady but her heart carrying a quiet weight she never shared with anyone. She had built this place from the ground up, pouring her soul into every brick, every cup, every warm smile to the customers who came through. But behind her calm demeanor was a history she carefully buried, the story of a man who had once promised her forever but had vanished before he could see the life they had unknowingly created together. She never spoke of him, not even when her little girl asked why their family was just the two of them. Emma believed she was strong enough to protect her daughter from heartbreak. What she didn't expect was the moment fate decided to bring her past back, unannounced, through the door of her cafe on an ordinary Thursday morning. It was the sound of the door chime that made Emma glance up, her smile ready as always for another customer. But then her world shifted when her eyes locked on the man stepping inside. Tall, sharp in his navy suit, his presence radiated power the way it once had love. Ethan Hayes, her Ethan, stood there, looking as if time had only sharpened him, but his eyes carried shadows she almost recognized. She froze, unable to breathe, her body screaming at her to hide while her heart whispered a forgotten longing she had fought to bury. She thought she had imagined him 1,000 times over the years, but now here he was, flesh and blood, standing in the doorway of the life he never knew he left behind. The tray in her hand shook, and for the first time in years, Emma's carefully built walls began to crack. Her daughter, Lily, sat on a stool behind the counter, doodling in her notebook while humming a tune. She was 7, full of life, with the same spark in her eyes Emma had once seen in Ethan's. Emma had always told herself the resemblance was only in her imagination, but now, with him standing just a few feet away, the truth became undeniable. Lily looked up at the tall stranger, curiosity dancing across her innocent face. And then, without hesitation, she tilted her head, studied him for a second, and softly asked, "Daddy?" The word sliced through the air like lightning, stunning both Emma and Ethan into silence. The cafe seemed to shrink around them, the quiet moment louder than any storm. Emma's breath caught, her hands trembling as the secret she had protected for so long unraveled in a single innocent question. Ethan's eyes widened as the word struck him with a force he wasn't prepared for. His gaze snapped to Emma, confusion and shock swirling in the storm of his emotions. His chest tightened as he looked back at the little girl who bore his same eyes, his same smile, his same unexplainable aura of familiarity. Questions tore through his mind, but words failed him as his throat burned with disbelief. He had come into the cafe seeking nothing more than a cup of coffee and a moment of peace from his relentless world as a CEO, but instead he stumbled upon a truth that shattered every piece of the life he thought he knew. "Emma," he whispered, his voice heavy with pain and realization, 1,000 unsaid emotions hanging between them. The room was suffocating with silence, broken only by Lily's quiet, innocent smile as if she had just solved the puzzle of her own life. Emma's hands gripped the edge of the counter, her body rigid as she tried to summon strength she wasn't sure she still had. This wasn't how she wanted him to find out. She had always dreamed of the right moment, maybe someday when Lily was older, or perhaps never at all if she could protect her heart from more pain. Now, everything was out, raw and exposed, and there was no hiding anymore. "Lily, sweetheart, why don't you go sit in the back for a bit?" Emma said softly, her voice strained but steady. Her daughter obeyed, skipping off with a trust only children could give, leaving Emma face to face with the man who had once been her entire world. Ethan stepped closer, his eyes dark with questions, his hands clenched at his sides as if fighting against the urge to demand answers. She met his gaze, her chest rising and falling rapidly, bracing for the storm. "I didn't know," Ethan said finally, his voice breaking through the suffocating silence. "Emma, I swear to you, I didn't know." His words were raw, desperate, carrying a truth she hadn't expected to hear. Her anger, carefully buried for years, surged back, threatening to spill. "You left," she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of unspoken nights. "You walked away without a word. Do you have any idea what that did to me? To us?" Tears burned in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry for him again, but his presence tore down every wall she had built. Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes filled with regret she couldn't ignore. "I thought I was protecting you," he said, voice hoarse. "I thought walking away was the only way to keep you safe from the storm I was in." But to Emma, those words felt like daggers, excuses for a wound she had carried too long. The cafe, usually filled with laughter and chatter, now held only the heavy silence of two people drowning in old memories. Emma's hands trembled as she picked up a rag, pretending to clean the counter though her heart pounded too loudly to think. She wanted to scream, to push him out, to protect her daughter from the man who had already hurt them once. But a part of her, the part that still remembered his arms around her, ached with the truth of what she had lost. Lily deserves better than this, Emma said finally, her voice low but firm. She deserves stability, love, and someone who won't walk away. Ethan flinched, the weight of her words pressing against the guilt already crushing him. Then let me try, he said, his voice urgent, pleading. Let me be here. For her. For you, if you'll let me. Emma shook her head, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. It's not that simple. Ethan stepped closer, his presence overwhelming her senses, his voice dropping to a whisper. Emma, I never stopped loving you. The words struck her heart like a spark to dry wood, igniting feelings she had spent years smothering. She wanted to reject them, to call them lies, but the way he looked at her, the same way he had all those years ago, made her heart betray her resolve. She turned away, her hand pressed to her chest, fighting for control. Memories rushed back, late-night talks, stolen kisses, the promises they had whispered under the stars. And then the crushing memory of him leaving without explanation. The wounds still burned, yet the old flame refused to die. Love isn't enough, she whispered, her voice broken. Not when trust is gone. Ethan's chest rose and fell, his jaw tight as he fought against the fear of losing her all over again. The following days were filled with tension, each visit Ethan made to the cafe stirring emotions Emma didn't want to feel. He started coming every morning, not just for coffee but for the chance to see Lily, to watch her smile, to learn the little things about her he had missed. At first, Emma kept her distance, watching with guarded eyes as her daughter laughed with a man she didn't yet understand. But over time, she couldn't deny the way Lily's eyes lit up when Ethan entered the room, or the way his presence softened into something tender whenever he looked at their daughter. Emma's heart wavered, torn between protecting herself from pain and giving her daughter the father she deserved. Each moment was a battle she silently fought, unsure which side of her heart would win. Ethan, too, fought his own war, desperate to prove he wasn't the man who left but the man who could stay. One evening, after closing the cafe, Emma found herself sitting across from Ethan at one of the tables. Lily had already fallen asleep in the back, and the quiet of the night wrapped around them like an invisible cocoon. Why now? She asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Why come back after all this time? Ethan's eyes glistened with a pain she hadn't expected. Because I never stopped searching for peace, and every road led me back to you, he admitted, his voice thick. I was young, reckless, afraid of the world I was stepping into. Becoming CEO wasn't just about success, it was about survival. But the emptiness never left, Emma. Not without you. His words tugged at her heart, awakening the girl who had once believed in his promises. Yet the woman she had become knew better than to give her heart too quickly. You broke me, she whispered, her voice raw. And I don't know if I can trust you again. Ethan leaned forward, his hands reaching across the table, not touching her but close enough for her to feel the warmth. Then don't trust my words, he said softly. Watch my actions. Let me show you who I am now. Let me show Lily the father she deserves. Emma stared at him, torn between her aching heart and her wounded soul. She saw the man who had left, but she also saw the man sitting before her now, stronger, steadier, and filled with regret that seemed real. Her silence stretched, heavy and fragile, until she finally whispered, actions, Ethan. That's all I'll allow. His shoulders dropped in relief, and for the first time, a flicker of hope lit between them. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a door slightly open. A door he was determined to walk through, no matter how long it took. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan became a fixture in their lives. He helped Emma in the cafe, sometimes clumsily but always with determination. He picked Lily up from school, learning about her favorite books and the way she loved to paint. Slowly, Emma watched as her daughter bonded with the man she had always wondered about. Each smile Lily gave him cracked Emma's defenses, and each quiet moment they shared tugged at her heart. She found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done in years. But with the laughter came fear, fear that it would all fall apart again, that he would leave once more. At night, she lay awake, torn between hope and caution, her heart whispering a truth she wasn't ready to face. She still loved him, more than she wanted to admit. One afternoon, Emma walked into the cafe to find Ethan and Lily painting together at one of the tables. The sight stopped her in her tracks, her heart swelling with a mix of love and longing. Ethan's suit jacket was off, his sleeves rolled up, and his hands covered in streaks of blue paint. Lily giggled, holding up her picture proudly, a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. Above it, in her messy handwriting, she had written, "Me, Mommy, Daddy." Emma's breath caught as she looked at the picture, tears threatening to spill. Ethan noticed her standing there, their eyes locking in a moment so heavy it silenced everything around them. He didn't speak, but his expression said everything. This was the family he wanted, the one he had lost and now longed to rebuild. Emma turned away, her heart too full, unsure if she was ready for what it meant. Later that night, Ethan found Emma in the quiet of the cafe, wiping down tables as if the task could steady her racing heart. "She drew us," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan stepped closer, his eyes soft but firm. "Because that's what she sees," he said gently. "A family. One I'm begging you to let me fight for." Emma closed her eyes, the weight of years pressing down on her shoulders. She wanted to believe him, to let herself fall into the arms she once knew so well. But the fear of losing him again clawed at her soul. "What if you leave again?" she asked, her voice breaking. Ethan shook his head, his hand hovering near hers, not touching but close enough to feel. "I won't," he said firmly. "Not this time. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you, if you let me." Emma opened her eyes, meeting his gaze, searching for the truth she had doubted for so long. And in that moment, she saw it, the raw sincerity, the unshakable resolve, the love that hadn't died despite the years apart. Her walls trembled, and for the first time in years, she let them fall, just a little. A tear slipped down her cheek, and Ethan's hand finally covered hers, warm and steady. "We'll take it slow," she whispered, her voice soft but sure. His grip tightened slightly, as if anchoring himself to the promise. "Slow is enough," he replied, his voice filled with hope. In the silence that followed, the wounds of the past didn't disappear, but they began to heal. And for the first time, Emma let herself imagine a future where love didn't just break, it rebuilt. Weeks passed, and their lives slowly wove together again. Ethan proved his words with actions, standing by Emma in the daily chaos of running the cafe, caring for Lily with patience and joy, showing up not just when it was easy but when it was hard. Emma watched, her heart slowly trusting, her love cautiously unfolding like a flower after a long winter. There were still fears, still nights she questioned if she was doing the right thing, but each morning when Ethan showed up, steady and true, her doubts began to fade. Lily thrived, her laughter filling the spaces that once felt heavy with absence. And Emma found herself smiling more, not just because of Ethan, but because of the family they were becoming. For the first time in years, hope felt real, not fragile. One rainy evening, as the cafe lights flickered warmly against the storm outside, Ethan pulled Emma close as Lily played nearby. "Do you ever think we were meant to find our way back?" he whispered, his voice husky with emotion. Emma leaned into him, her heart steady against his chest. "Maybe we were always meant to," she replied softly, her eyes shining. The storm outside raged, but inside, there was only warmth. Ethan kissed her forehead, a promise lingering in the touch. And for the first time in a long time, Emma let herself believe in forever, not the fragile one of youth, but the tested, rebuilt forever of two hearts that had broken and found each other again. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in that little cafe, love came back home.